Part 107. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1064. Ka has no line of defense, and the recent war has become somewhat routine. Fastest update. Although the battle is equally fierce, many battleships and even fleets are still destroyed every day, but that number is not so ugly compared to the huge population base of the entire Kawo defense line. Even after experiencing the initial panic, various entertainment activities began to take place in the positions within Kawo's defense line. Female creatures of the same race, gambling, drugs, and even blatant selling and buying of rank occurred. This is not because everyone is used to life and death. Just because they are facing possible death at any time, the entire defense line has become a little self-indulgent. Military discipline cannot be maintained and slowly begins to fester. Recently, the entire defense line has begun to reorganize. Listen, in the next period of time, there will be a huge turning point for our Kawo defense line. That is, the fleet from the Earth will come to support. This is a historic moment. If you still want to save your heads, give it to us. I will endure it for a while, at least in front of my friends on Earth, and show off the dignity of a soldier on the Kawo self-defense line. If you cannot maintain military discipline for 2 months and make the Kawo defense line embarrassed in front of our friends on Earth, then the enemy does not need to take action. I will personally take care of it and make your death not so ugly. A famous high-level commander of the selfless defense line made such remarks to his subordinates. Because of these remarks, the whole defense line, at least hundreds of millions of living creatures, actually restrained themselves in an instant. Countless female creatures, in the name of vacation, went to several empires around the defense line, causing harm, no, benefiting those civilizations. Gambling and drug abuse are even more severely punished, at least on the surface nothing can be seen. All this is a superficial phenomenon for the Earth support fleet that is about to arrive. And under the expectation of everyone, one day, a huge fleet of more than 3,000 warships flew from the sky in a mighty manner. Is this the Kawo defense line? It's so majestic. It is indeed a defense line created by the Orion Arm as a whole. A group of Earthling students and teachers were all behind the flagship, watching the majesty of Kawo's defense line, seeing the barrier stretching to the sky, and seeing the warships patrolling the entire starry sky. Almost everyone was shocked by this terrifying situation. And the magnificent defense line was shocking. Originally, the people on Earth were a low-level civilization. Although they had gained a lot of interstellar knowledge recently due to Jia Yan's strategies and commercial activities, they were naturally shocked when they suddenly saw such a terrifying military defense line. There are tens of thousands of creatures in each base over there, right? There are tens of thousands of such bases in Kawo's defense line, and the number is still increasing. Oh my God! I doubt that all the Orion Arm creatures have reached this defense line, but in fact I have seen statistics before. Among other things, the total population of the Great Empire alone has reached more than 500 billion. In comparison, there are only a civilization on Earth with less than 10 billion people is basically a frog in a well. I've also heard that if the Great Empire mobilizes the whole country, its empire alone can easily mobilize the number of troops that we can't have on our defense line. It's terrifying. Not only ordinary students and teachers were shocked by the Kawo self-defense line, Jia Qi in the flagship was also shocked by the Kawo self-defense line she saw in front of her. Child Jiakai, cough, no, Miss Jiakai, are you satisfied with the situation without my defense line? The fifth prince beside Jia Qi asked proudly. Well, what a powerful military defense line, we on Earth can't compare. Jiakai nodded sincerely. As a leading figure among the modern Earthlings, although in the eyes of the fifth prince, she was only at the level of a baby, she actually still had some vision, so when she saw Kawo defense line, she immediately recognized her level. But then she thought about it. With such a line of defense, don't you really want your uncle's help? Even for this reason, he tried his best to please himself, a little girl from the earth. Thinking of this, Jiakai's proud little tail almost turned up. The arrival of the huge warship caused the defense fleet in front of them to also react. First, a fleet of about 5,000 ships slowly arrived in front of Earth's motley fleet, and then formed a formation to welcome distinguished guests. "Welcome to Your Excellency Princess Jiakai of Earth." Jiakai's eyes widened as she looked at the 5,000 warships with the square and square font of Earth China. "Haha, Miss Jiaqi, they really worked hard to create such a formation. I feel very distressed about the skills and hardships involved," the fifth prince said to Jiaqi. "In fact, arranging Chinese characters is not the most difficult thing. What is difficult is the formation and movement of the battleships that were performed before. The beautiful feeling is like writing the welcome font one by one. Even if the people on Earth are not familiar with interstellar battleships, if you don't understand the formation, you will definitely understand how intensive training is required for 5,000 warships to reach such a position." The welcome was not over yet. After the performance of 5,000 warships, a bright light flashed in the starry sky, and 10,000 invisible warships suddenly appeared in front of the Earth's fleet. "Great Empire Earth Eternal Alliance. This is Chinese characters again." Although the other party was showing off their military posture, the group of Earthlings here felt inexplicably proud. "You must know that this is the Kaowo defense line that almost no Earthlings will come to. Even the Earthlings themselves cannot fly here with battleships, but the prestige of the Earth civilization has still reached here." This invisible sense of pride, as the other party's increasingly grand welcome event, makes the people on Earth even more aware. In the past, in the Earth civilization, civilizations from outside always came to attend meetings and negotiate. Although the people on Earth knew that Earth people had a very high status in the entire Orion arm, it was really unclear what the actual situation was. There were even many. The Black Party, on the internet, says that people on Earth have a glass heart, but in fact, in the Orion arm, they are at the level of an ordinary civilization. But now that I saw that even the Great Empire went to great lengths to greet them with a fleet, I immediately understood that the status of the people on Earth was exactly as the scholars in the media said, and it had reached a very high level within the arms of Orion. Of course, the other party did this mainly because Jiaqi was there. If only they could have a battleship to greet them. "Thank you so much for the welcome from the Great Empire." Jiakai nodded to the fifth prince in the flagship of the Earth fleet. "It would be great if Miss Jiaqi likes her." The fifth prince breathed a deep sigh of relief and smiled. In fact, he knew that the entire Kaowo defense line had sacrificed a lot for this welcome ceremony. "Okay, let's go to the command star now. My second emperor brother is eagerly looking forward to your arrival." The fifth prince smiled at Jiaqi. When he got here, his mission was considered completed, and Jiaqi would be received by his second prince. Although he regretted that he could not have more personal relationships with Jiaqi, it was a heavy burden lifted, especially knowing that after the other party turned 17, it felt even more boring that he was talking to a little baby girl all the time. All the fleets converged into their formations, especially the 15,000 warships that welcomed the VIPs. The soldiers inside were panting heavily. The mental test required by this formation was a mental test for every biological soldier, and they didn't want to do it again. But just as the Earth fleet merged into the 15,000 battleships, it slowly moved towards the commander-in-chief of the Kaowo defense line not far away in the starry sky. Bo! Within the starry sky, an extremely twisted wave suddenly appeared. In that fluctuation, a huge creature with a height of more than 300 meters stepped out of the subspace. The location where he appeared was surprisingly where Jiakai's Earth flagship was. "Haha, what are you Orion arms, these frogs in the well, doing? It turns out you are welcoming some big shot, right? Look at me crushing her." This creature is a sub-level creature from the outside world, and his talent is actually a space talent. Like Jia Yan, he can even move in subspace. At this time, he stepped out of subspace and struck hard at the flagship of the Earth fleet where Jiakai was. What? You dare? At the same moment, angry shouts sounded near the starry sky. These are all powerful creatures protected near Kaowo's defense line. Important people from the Earth's Geo family appear here on Kaowo's defense line. Of course, security is at the highest level. Especially not far from the flagship, a green monster suddenly jumped out of a battleship welcoming VIPs. He was 300 to 400 meters tall, with terrifying strength fluctuations. He was actually Flame, one of the two strongest men in the Empire. Asshole, stop it. Flame's expression was extremely solemn. After jumping out of the battleship, he suddenly attacked the space creature directly. But his speed was not fast, and the other party suddenly appeared outside Jiakai's flagship, so there was no way he could rescue him in time. Something bad happened. In the command star of the Kaowo defense line not far from here, the commander-in-chief of the defense line, the general, the second prince of the great empire, also changed his demeanor at this time. You must know that he was one of the people in charge of inviting Jiachi before. The composition of the Geo family had already been figured out from the information he had learned. Then he invited a team and specially formulated this invitation. They even calculated Jiachi's character, and everything was wrong. Step. But no one could have expected that an external sub-level creature could jump out of the subspace. This was beyond everyone's expectations. But the first thing that came to the second prince's mind was deep fear. If Jiachi is in danger here, the relationship between the Earth, especially Jiayan, and their empire will definitely deteriorate. Let alone help, they may even become enemies from now on. That would be the most terrifying disaster for the great empire. Block it for me. The second prince almost shouted. But things happened so fast that none of the warships around the flagship could react. That time, the creature struck so hard that the entire battleship trembled, almost breaking into pieces under the pressure. Hey, little Kikai, I made you love to play, but now you're afraid. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1065. Jackie is scared. Really, from birth to now, except for the dangers she experienced in her childhood, which she no longer remembers, she never remembers any dangerous situations. Under the protective shell of the Geo family and the name Jiayan, she never encountered anything that could upset her mood. Although under these conditions she did not become a willful young lady with an eccentric personality, she did. I never felt any danger or fear. She had always thought that she could become the new protector of the Earth like her uncle in the future. And now she's scared. When that terrifying creature, as huge as a house hundreds of stories high, appeared in front of her, Jiakai was shocked. And she became even more desperate when she felt that the monster's body was extremely terrifying and had no power that she could compare to. You must know that the most powerful existences Jiakai had seen before this, except for her uncle who never knew the strength and would not show pressure to her, were just some venerable creatures, and even the sages did not dare to what kind of coercion was shown to her. But the creature in front of her, with its terrifying pressure that could be compared to that of the sea, made her mind almost go blank. Is this something that human power can defeat? Kawu has no defense line, so he is fighting against such a terrifying creature? Could his uncle defeat such a terrifying existence? When the terrifying monster attacked, Jiachi felt extremely regretful. She understood that her actions seemed to be seeking death. This enemy with such a tight defensive line will naturally not exist simply. He still foolishly ran to such a dangerous place. What else could he do if he wasn't seeking death? Such a terrifying creature. Not to mention that my uncle is not here. Even if he comes, he can't save me. After Jiachi saw the strength of this creature with her own eyes, she didn't seem to believe in the seemingly harmless uncle she had seen every day before. But just when she thought she was certain to die, A chuckle appeared in the scene where her life was hanging by a thread. Huh, the sub-level creature that attacked the flagship was shocked, and then glanced towards the subspace to one side. What kind of existence is this? But he is still far away and cannot hinder me at all. Let's kill the people in the flagship first. This time, the creature was not afraid of the coming people at all, but just to avoid things changing, the attack speed was suddenly increased. None of the surrounding creatures knew who the creature that made the sound was. However, the expressions of the flame that came quickly to help, as well as several senior officials of the Kawo defense line, changed slightly. The moment the voice sounded, Jia knew who it was. This is the voice of a loved one. Uncle Jia Yan. Uncle Jiakai burst into tears instantly, and then she saw the foot of the terrifying creature, like a pillar dozens of stories high, hit her flagship hard. Jiakai felt that this was a hallucination of hearing her uncle's voice before she died. But is this an illusion? Of course not. When the level external creatures suddenly struck the flagship, the distant sound had already reached the front of the creatures. The entire battlefield was filled with his slightly angry shouts. Scared my niece, damn it! Accompanied by the sound of anger, almost in a flash, a creature as small as dust appeared in front of the monster's attacking foot. So he is such a small creature, or just a venerable person. Let's die together. That time, the creature instantly judged the opponent's strength, and then gave a sneer. At this moment, he didn't seem to consider at all why the other party was so fast, let alone why the other party was not moved at all by the brainwave power he released. His momentary carelessness in battle caused the tragic outcome that followed. Of course, even if he noticed all this, it would be impossible to reverse the outcome of the battle. The speed of the battle between the two sides was almost flashing. As soon as the tiny creature appeared, it clapped its hands. One foot is like a dozen-story building, and the other is just the size of an ordinary human's hand. No matter who looks at it, it is an incomparable battle. Everyone can imagine that the tiny creature is definitely overwhelmed by the huge one. With one strike, the creature was reduced to dregs. But the actual situation is not like this at all. The collision between the two did not have the terrifying fluctuations like Mars hitting the Earth. Even the scene was like slow motion. The momentum and brainwave power of both sides were clashing first, which caused the distortion of space. To others, time seemed to have stopped for a moment in the middle of the battle. But in fact, this is just an effect. People who see it think that time has slowed down, but that is just an illusion caused by the terror of both parties in the battle. It is foreseeable that the creatures who see the scene will have headaches for a period of time in the future, because they have seen a battle that they should not watch, and their brain cells cannot process it. The moment the hand of that tiny creature made contact with the opponent, it was like a diamond, smashing into the opponent's foot body. Then it was like a shock wave was released, and along the palm, the entire foot collapsed in a circle. The late shock wave was like a terrifying stellar storm, causing the surrounding battleships to be blown away. What? The second-level creature in the battle only felt a sudden pain in his foot. Then, in disbelief, cracks appeared on the foot that collided with the tiny venerable, and even a large part of the foot was broken. An instant later, his proud and hard foot was suddenly broken into two pieces in the middle, with no possibility of recovery. What kind of venerable is this? Sensing the opponent's strength, Quan Biology was suddenly shocked this time, finally showing a look of panic, and then retreated suddenly towards the rear. A gap appeared in the subspace behind him, and he wanted to enter the subspace battle according to his previous fighting method. But he was unlucky today. The opponent he encountered was also a subspace creature. Moreover, the opponent's subspace comprehension power far exceeded his level. Oh, in front of me, he actually wants to enter the subspace to fight. He is just trying to do whatever he wants. Seeing him entering the subspace, the tiny creature smiled slightly, and then also stepped forward, entering the subspace before the huge monster. Then, when the sub-level creatures didn't react, he felt an extremely astonishing attack aura coming from the gap in the subspace behind him. He wanted to quickly change direction and escape, but it was already too late. Puff! The space vibrated, and a thin fist struck the creature's back. This fist is only a dozen centimeters in diameter, but the effect of his bombardment is shocking. A terrifying blood pit exploded in the back of the huge sub-level creature, and dozens of meters of flesh and blood flew into the air. Then he had no chance of escaping. The force of this blow penetrated his flesh and blood, shattering his heart and brain. He cannot die anymore. How is it possible that there is such a respect? The vitality in the eyes of the sub-Guan creature slowly disappeared, but it still murmured in its mouth. For him, it is impossible to see such a terrifying venerable person. In the eyes of ordinary creatures in the outside world, geniuses are legendary existences. Most of them are not even willing to believe that there will be people in the world who can kill enemies beyond their ranks. Genius creature. Moreover, this tiny creature is too small. With such a size, no matter how talented it is, it cannot be that powerful. The answer he wanted was impossible to get. His vitality slowly dissipated, and he finally turned into a huge piece of lifeless flesh in the universe. This is Lord Jiayan. The creatures who were watching the battle suddenly came to their senses. The person in the battle is not the legendary strongman of Earth civilization Jiayan who has disappeared for half a year, but who is it? The creatures in the entire battlefield were extremely shocked. Even though Lord Jiayan was strong before, he didn't feel as scary as he does now. Lord Jiayan, in a short period of time, Zayashui Yuan seems to have become stronger again. The flame slowly approached the battle circle. The previous battle sounded long, but in fact it only lasted a few seconds. It was so fast that he, the patron saint of the great empire, could hardly react. And a sub-level creature that he might not be able to defeat was killed by Jiayan in 2 blows in just a few seconds. This made him, a powerful man from the great empire, almost look extremely solemn. The one in the battle is of course Jiayan. After killing this secondary level creature, he slowly exhaled. Although the opponent was not difficult to kill and the battle was not thrilling, if he had not arrived in time, his little niece might have died. This made him cringe even thinking about it. As for the issue of strength, Jiayan's current clone, after several energy linkage transmissions with the real body, has reached the theoretical limit of this clone. Of course, it is much stronger than the previous clone. Lord Flame, long time no see. Jiayan saw the green creature slowly approaching and nodded immediately. Master Jiayan's demeanor is still the same as before, but Huo is getting worse and worse. Huo is not so friendly to Jiayan and keeps a certain distance. Jiayan naturally had nothing to say to him. After a few words, he turned his attention to the Earthling flagship not far away. There, a little girl on the bridge looked at him with eyes that were both happy and nervous. Your Excellency Huoyan, we have suffered a slight loss of compensation. Your Excellency Jiayan, please. After Jiayan finished talking to Yan Huo, he didn't care about the other senior officials of Kaowo defense line. To put it bluntly, except for Huoyan, the other senior officials were not at the level to talk to him. The formulaic diplomatic smile faded from his face, and then he flashed with anger. The next moment, little Jiakai, who was looking at the scenery outside the bridge in the flagship, felt a gust of wind blowing around her. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1066. She turned around in surprise, and found that Jiayan, who was still in the universe just now, talking to Master Flame, whom all living creatures could only look up to, had used some method to arrive behind her in an instant. And his demeanor seemed vaguely evil. "Uncle, uncle." Jia could hardly stop laughing. "Huh, I haven't seen you for more than half a year, but you have grown up." Jia Yan looked at her and said coldly, "But why does Uncle Brain think that she is getting smaller and smaller as she grows? Tell me, are you stupider than my sister? You actually believed the words of the great empire and came to Kawo defense line. Do you think it is so fun here?" Jia Yan turned on the training mode, and Jia Qi knew that she was wrong. Tears rolled down her face and she didn't dare to wipe them away. "You still have the ability to cry. Do you know where you went wrong?" Jia Yan was really angry. "Uncle, I know I was wrong. I won't dare to do it anymore." Jia Qi's shoulders twitched and she cried very sadly. Looking at her appearance, Jia Yan's heart softened again. After all, it was his niece who he had watched grow up. Moreover, he was angry because she almost put him into death. If he hadn't arrived just in time today, the consequences would have been bad. It's unimaginable. Forget it, everyone makes mistakes sometimes. Back then, your mother still, well, she didn't say it. Jia Yan just wanted to expose Jia Lin's shortcomings, but after thinking about it, he decided not to say it, so that his sister could maintain some authority in her daughter's heart. "Okay, let's go back with Uncle now," Jia Yan said. In Jia Yan's original mind, the Kawo defense line had indeed felt a bit overheated recently. His original intention was to stay here to clean up the front and control the situation. But now that little Jackie is here, other things can only be pushed to the back. Unexpectedly, at the same time that Jia Yan said these words, a figure near the bridge interrupted the conversation between the two parties with some embarrassment. "Ahem, this, dear Lord Jia Yan, hello, I am the fifth prince of the great empire." This man was extremely good-looking and well-spoken. He thought he had done the best he could. But he felt that his calves were still shaking. This is a super powerful man who may far surpass the two patron saints of their great empire. There has long been a faint rumor in the entire Orion arm that His Excellency Jia Yan of the Earth civilization is the strongest person in the entire Orion arm. He is one of the five. The prince also understands this. The scene he saw with his own eyes confirmed his idea. Now of course he is extremely afraid, because facing such a strong man, the identity of the fifth prince is like a joke. "Huh? Hello, Your Excellency." Fifth Prince Jia Yan glanced at the other party. Of course he knew there was an eyesore here from the beginning, but Jia Yan had no intention of paying attention to him. "Your Excellency Jia Yan, I had no intention of eavesdropping on your conversation with Princess Jia Qi. I just happened to be here. However, I think it is inappropriate for you to say that you want to lead Princess Jia Qi back to Earth just now," the fifth prince said to Jia Yan bravely. "Do I need the fifth prince to teach me how to do things? I don't remember that I am loyal to your empire." A gleam flashed in Jia Yan's eyes. Then the fifth prince seemed to have been subjected to an extremely terrifying bombardment, and he took a step back, with blood flowing out of his mouth. Jia Yan used his actions to show that he was dissatisfied with the actions of the great empire, especially this time when Jia Qi was lured to the Kawa defense line. He was extremely dissatisfied in his heart. Otherwise, no matter how strong he thought he was, he would not be ignorant enough to attack a fifth prince of a great empire. But the fifth prince still refused to let go. "Your Excellency Jia Yan, let's be honest. We have no defense and there is nothing we can do. Otherwise, why would we do such a despicable thing as luring Miss Jia Qi to the front? Sir, take a look. Kawo's defense line is now riddled with holes. If you don't help, it might collapse tomorrow. We will protect Miss Jia Kai and others. Please take the time to help the defense line. My lord, your lips are dying and your teeth are cold," the fifth prince actually begged. Although he was not crying, his voice was sincere and it didn't sound like a lie. "This." Jia Yan hesitated for a moment. He came all the way and actually saw that the Kawo defense line was full of fighting scenes. An ordinary base would only be beaten when faced with an outside Venerable, or even just an outside Starry Sky class. As for the Venerable level experts within Orion's arms, it would be difficult for them to compete with the Starry Sky level from the outside world, not to mention the increasing number of Venerable level experts who are intruding now, and even the figures of the second level are seen from time to time. Kawu's defense line is really in jeopardy. When Jia Yan hesitated, Jia Qi in front of him also came forward, held Jia Yan's arm, and shook it coquettishly. "Uncle, they are so pitiful. I promise to retreat behind the defense line, and you can help me let them." Jia Qi is still moved by the other party's words to persuade her a few months ago. For example, the Kao self-defense line is finished, and it is only a matter of time before the Earth is in crisis. There are also huge business opportunities on the Kao self-defense line, and the Earth is here. If you do business, the way of commercial civilization will go better. This is the reason why Jia Qi is speaking now. Jia Yan hesitated for a moment. In fact, he agreed with the fifth prince's words, but in his heart he could not forgive him for being petty. And with him here, Jia Qi's safety should be safe. The fifth prince seemed to have discovered the crux of the matter. "Your Excellency Jia Yan, in order to compensate for the psychological damage caused to the Earth's allies this time, our great empire will provide a batch of materials to the Earth civilization. Also, you seem to have a need for the essence and blood of our ancient predecessors. I will mention your request at the next royal meeting, and if everyone in the family agrees, you may be able to obtain part of our family's blood essence." Oh! A strange color flashed in Jia Yan's eyes. His demand for the essence and blood of the great empire was seen by all discerning people. His disappearance some time ago was because the Starless Light Realm obtained a diluted version of the blood essence. This information must have been known to the great empire. But he had never had the empire's confidence in this blood essence before. It seemed that the other party would not take out the blood essence easily. What I didn't expect was that the fifth prince would reveal the truth under such circumstances. Even if there are definitely obstacles in the way, Jia Yan is not worried. As long as the other party talks about this, there will be a chance for things to change in the future. It will be better than him knocking on the door to get something better. Of course, there is also the so-called compensation that the fifth prince has explicitly given to the Earth. This kind of icing on the cake also makes people feel comfortable. He had the answer in his heart, but after pondering for a moment, he nodded slightly. "Okay, since the fifth prince is so sincere, I will help you with your defense first. However, Xiaoqi's safety requires you to put more effort into it. It will definitely happen. Even if my second brother and I die, nothing will happen to Xiaopeng Jiakai, the little princess." The legendary Lord Jia Yan appears again. Even as soon as it appeared, it defused an attack by outside creatures against the Earth's rescue fleet. That battle, according to the creatures seen at the scene, was an eye-opener. Master Jia Yan's strength was almost supernatural and unfathomable. Almost all the soldiers who witnessed this battle admired Master Jia Yan extremely. Even if they were not helpful at all, they were still slobbering and bragging with their colleagues who had not witnessed the scene. Through their mouths, the soldiers on the entire defense line seemed to have a slight hope in their almost collapsed mentality. Although this hope is slim, it is better than no hope at all. To everyone's surprise, Lord Jia Yan's efficiency was so high that they had not yet fully spread the news about Lord Jia Yan. This adult has already unfolded his methods and strength. Boom! Above the sky, outside a gap in subspace, the sound of bombing shook the entire vacuum. This unique vacuum vibration sound represents the attack phenomenon of Lord Jia Yan from subspace creatures. Along with this bombing sound, an outsider roared directly to death. The attacking Lord Jia Yan almost didn't show his face. At least the creatures in the battlefield didn't even see his shadow. Seeing a burst of distortion in the space, the other party directly leave. Not long after, a similar scene happened in another place not far from this battlefield. Jia Yan's behavior as a firefighter appeared again in this self-defense line. More than half a year later, although he is still doing the same thing, not only does the external biological strength seem to be stronger, but the strength of Jia Yan's avatar has also become much stronger by leaps and bounds. So even though there seem to be more external creatures and they are a bit more powerful, there are almost no enemies in front of the more powerful Jia Yan. He's more efficient. The scenes of this battle were like a shot in the arm, making the entire defenseless creature extremely excited. This venerable creature is not scary. Let's form a formation to stop him. Yes, it's not scary. Although we only have 500 warships, as long as we hold him for half an hour, His Excellency Jia Yan will arrive and kill him with one blow. Within the entire Kaowo defense line, terrifying fighting power erupted almost everywhere, although it was impossible for Jia Yan to really rush to any place on the defense line instantly. But with this opportunity of hope, the soldiers on the entire defense line showed a completely different look from before. Jia Yan is fighting in the outside world. And the nominal Earth fleet, after experiencing the previous crisis, was arranged half a light year away from the defense line. Although it is still close to the defense line here, no outside creature has ever reached such a distance from the barrier. It can be said to be the real rear area. Wow, look, our Lord Jia Yan is so handsome. He is another powerful person from the outside world. He can be killed in 3 strikes. It's so scary. I didn't even know that our Lord Protector of the Earth, there are such terrifying strong men in the entire Orion arm. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1067. Yes, they also said that Lord Jia Yan has the strongest Orion arm. No wonder the outside civilizations are respectful when they see us. The Earthling fleet has tens of thousands of people in total. Although they are arranged in an area far away from the war zone, they can still see the battle situation at Kaowo's defense line every day. Every time they see Jia Yan shining brightly within Kaowo's defense line, these people on Earth would make a fuss and almost be horrified. You must know that Jia Yan's status is high among the civilizations in the Orion arm. However, Earth civilization is too closed and its level is too low. At most, when a certain civilization comes to send something, people on Earth think it is joining the great empire. Normal exchanges. But now they know that if it weren't for Jia Yan, why would the great empire and other civilizations be so kind to Earth civilization? All of this is not just the terrifying and unparalleled strength of Jia Yan's protector god. The shock here was even stronger than the shock of the Kaowo defense line garrison protecting them. Princess Xiaoqi, your uncle is so terrible. Jia was in the flagship, watching with some obsession on the big screen her familiar yet unfamiliar uncle Jia Yan, killing everyone in the universe. She was a little discouraged because she had believed since she was a child that she was from the Jia family and had inherited her uncle's good fighting genes and would be as powerful as her uncle in the future. But now she realized that it seemed that it was impossible to compare herself with her uncle. A 17-year-old girl can be regarded as powerful if she can reach the high level of heaven. Back then, on the gray-yellow star, the high level of heaven was considered a master. Even her current aunt, Satsumakan, is only at the top of the heaven level. But she thought about her uncle. Even if he started practicing since he was born, he had been practicing for a relatively short time, but he was unfathomable. In this Orion arm, he was almost a myth. Your Excellency, the 5th Prince, how strong do you think my uncle is? Jia suddenly turned her head and looked at the man who was talking to her. It turned out that in this flagship, it was the 5th Prince of the Great Empire who received Jia. Your Excellency, Jia Yan's strength is beyond my imagination. I only have 4 words, unfathomable. When the 5th Prince heard Jia question, he immediately shook his head with a wry smile. That's right, Mr. Jia, if it weren't for Mr. Jia Yan, our Kaowo defense line would not have improved in the past few days. On behalf of the Kaowo defense line, we would like to thank Mr. Jia Yan and the Jia family for their efforts. Another man came to Jia Qi lightly with a drink in his hand and drank to her. Looking further away, a group of human-looking senior officials from the empire were holding a cocktail party. Of course, their focus was naturally on Jia Qi, who seemed a little bored in the flagship. In order to prevent this girl from thinking about returning home, the people of the empire tried their best. Otherwise, if she said she wanted to go home, Jia Yan might as well go with her. My uncle is fighting, but I am holding a cocktail party here. It doesn't seem very good. Jia Qi looked at the people from the empire who were urging them to drink, looking a little at a loss. She was still a young girl and didn't have much experience, so of course she was at a loss in this situation. No, no, Mr. Jia Qi is a member of the Jia family. It is only right to cheer for Mr. Jia Yan here now. Moreover, we are not just having fun, but discussing business matters. Several ladies from the big empire came forward and discussed with Jia Qi some topics that girls like. Of course, they are all around 100 years old. Compared with girls from the earth like Jia Qi, their life experience and eloquence are much better. Much more. Your Excellency the Fifth Prince, this can stabilize Your Excellency Jia Qi for a while. I hope Lord Jia Yan can help our defense line kill more powerful outsiders. The man who was talking to Jia Kai before walked aside with the Fifth Prince, and then smiled bitterly. He felt a little embarrassed by playing tricks on a 17-year-old girl from Earth. Well, everything is for defense. The people on Earth are not without benefits. Otherwise, they will be unlucky if they let the outside creatures attack. The Fifth Prince shook his head. But from the information I have learned, the creatures in the outside world seem to be more active. Even though Mr. Jia Yan has stabilized the defense line recently, I have a vague feeling that the other party will make some big moves in the past few days. I hope it's just my misunderstanding. Huh? Why do I feel that the attacks on this line of defense have changed in the past few days? Jia Yan also had a similar feeling during the battle. He has been almost constantly busy lately. In order to coordinate his actions, he used the spaceship that had not been used for some time. After receiving the huge energy of the Great Empire, the speed of the spaceship reached more than 70% of its true speed. You must know that this is an aircraft that can fly in subspace, and its true speed is much faster than the speed of light. With it, Jia Yan is like a ghost that can appear anywhere in the defense line. He was still half a light year away before, but he can actually appear half a light year away a few days later. This is no longer something that ordinary Orion arm creatures can imagine. This kind of speed and efficiency caused the defense line to cease fighting for almost an instant, because the entire front line was bulldozed by Jia Yan alone. Of course, the price is that the space vehicle ages even more and is close to the edge of reimbursement. But there is no way, otherwise the defensive line will not be able to change the status quo just because of his effectiveness in one place. In fact, Jia Yan worked so hard, and the defense line did improve slightly because of his sudden appearance. But after a brief silence, the counterattack outside the barrier was beyond even Jia Yan's imagination. Sir, the Eastern District's defense line is in emergency. This, 3 sub-level external powerful creatures appeared at the same time. Lord Jia Yan, the southern border defense line is in emergency. 2 sub-level creatures attacked at the same time. There were numerous casualties among the officers and soldiers on the defense line. There is also information in the west corner. A total of 5 sub-levels appeared together, sir. Just overnight, no one on the Kaowo defense line appeared from Jia Yan. When they recovered from the joy that the battle situation had improved, a series of battles and crises shocked the entire defense line. You must know that one sub-level 1 can make the difference between the destruction of a region and the land. If there are 2, 3, or even 5, even if Jia Yan rushes away, they don't think Jia Yan can deal with it. Where's the closest? Jia Yan was also shocked by the sudden emergency. Then he clicked on the brain of the space capsule, which contained a quick battle report from the emergency liaison office. 3 sub-level places. Jia Yan took a deep breath. In this battle within Cao Wo's defense line, Jia Yan's avatar has never fought with more than 2 outsiders at the same time. Even though he can easily deal with an external sub-level, a clone is a clone. He estimates that 2 sub-levels will not be easy to deal with. If there are 3, let's know the fate of everything. Jia Yan let out a long sigh. The space capsule started quickly and flew towards the place where the 3 sub-levels appeared. Even if the clone's character breaks out and these 3 sub-levels are eliminated, where are the 5 sub-level external creatures left? Even if we take 10,000 steps back and wipe out the place where the 5 sub-level creatures appeared, judging from the strength of the opponent's attack this time, it is estimated that it will not be as simple as a large-scale dispatch. The forces in the biochemical starfield are definitely planning something bigger. Can I stop it with just my clone? Jia Yan's mentality was solemn. As he flew, he imagined the war. But unexpectedly, he was actually surrounded by a communication sound, which made him overjoyed. Before, the real body returned to Tingtian Pavilion. On the way, because the main energy was on the clone's side, the speed slowed down a lot, so at this time, it had just arrived at Tingtian Pavilion. But it was better to come early than to come by chance. I had just arrived at the world of Tingtianjia. Here, he actually heard 11 Bala's communication voice. And it's good news. Sir, our ejection device has been prepared and has been tested. The effect is good. When will you come to receive it? Bala's words sounded on Jia Yan's communicator. These words were heard by Jia Yan. It's almost the voice of an angel. The battle situation on the clone side is really not optimistic, especially around the defense line, where Jiakai is not far away. It doesn't matter if the clone dies in battle. If anything happens to Jia Qiu, he will be upset. But the real body might actually be ejected? Ziba. Get ready quickly. I will return to Tingtian Pavilion soon. Sir, do you want to eject now? Bala was shocked. She originally thought that Jia Yan was joking, or that even if he was going to eject, it would be a long time later. No matter what happens, he still has to reach the star level in the genius battlefield, but he didn't expect that what Jia Yan wanted to do was to dispatch now. Yes, but I did something and I will come back soon. Jia Yankao said this, but in fact, if he really returned to the Orion arm, he really didn't know how to quickly return to the genius battlefield at such a long distance. Well, sir, I have some things here for you, which may be able to help you on your return journey. Anyway, you can come back first. Bala was stunned for a while, and then said helplessly to Jia Yan. Okay, Jia Yan didn't care much about what he said. After turning off the communication, he directly focused his main energy on his clone. Haha, this must be Mr. Jia Yan, the strongest person in Orion's arms. It is an honor for the 3 of us to fight against you today. I heard that your lord is extremely powerful, so the 3 of us, who overestimate our capabilities, joined forces to fight you. Haha, what are you talking about? He, like a frog in the well in Orion's arm, can't understand the words of the outside world at all. The clone just switched over and faced the battlefield. The space capsule was extremely fast and arrived at the place where 3 sub-level creatures were infested. When I got here, I saw countless wreckage of warships in the starry sky, as well as countless corpses of creatures. The number was uncountable. Even Jia Yan, who didn't like the aliens very much, couldn't help but feel sympathy for the dead when he saw such a large death scene. You guys from the outside world, why can 3 of you appear together? Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1068. When the other 3 creatures seemed to think that Jia Yan, who had just stepped out of the space capsule, did not know the common language of the outside world at all. Jia Yan was above the starry sky, looking at them from a distance, and spoke the authentic common language. Hey, you can actually speak the common language of the outside world? And you look very authentic. It's useless to talk. The three of us were ordered to kill you. We were sure that you would appear here. Now, just die. Wait, let me answer his question first. This kind of strong man is qualified to be a wise man. This time we used the 7 machines that were just sent to shatter your Orion arm barrier, and we are ready to kill Kawu in one fell swoop. My defense line has been completely flattened, now you are satisfied. The 3 sub-level creatures appeared to be united, approaching Jia Yan's clone. In fact, if they had not known the strength of Jia Yan for a long time, they might not have thought that the seemingly insignificant creature in front of them was actually a being that could bring them a death threat. There are troops here on the Kawo defense line. In fact, the biochemical starfield forces attacking from the outside also have troops. It's just that the barrier machine's transportation capability is not strong, so only a single strong person is transported in every time. Only this time it's different. The 7 new machines that were sent have been improved and have more powerful performance. They can transport ordinary soldiers and combat equipment at the same time. Even more powerful experts can transport them. These 3 creatures were sent deliberately by the intelligence department from the outside world, who had calculated that Jia Yan was near the war zone. Their combat power exceeds that of ordinary second-level creatures, and the 3 of them join forces to double their strength. According to the calculations of the external intelligence department, it is impossible for Jia Yan to resist. I see. Is this an unprecedented type of war? Jia Yan's expression became serious. It's not that he is afraid, but that he is worried about the Earth fleet not far from the battlefield. If the clone dies, it will die. Anyway, there is a way to contact Taia country. At worst, let them spend more resources and make a new clone. But if the niece dies, there will be no more. Humph, Jia Yan, for a venerable person like you, it's not bad to be able to do this. Now just die under the attack of the 3 of us. One of the 3 sub-level experts, with a dinosaur-like appearance and the size of a 400-meter-tall Daxia, stepped down and charged towards Jia Yan. Large areas of space in the starry sky were shattered. This was not only caused by the opponent's momentum, but also because he had understood that Jia Yan was a subspace creature, and now deliberately messed up the space so that Jia Yan could not enter the subspace. The other 2 sub-level creatures also roared and charged towards Jia Yan. Compared to ordinary second-level powerhouses, are they slightly stronger? Jia Yan's expression became more solemn. Although the opponent's talent is not at the genius level, but he has reached the middle level of the second-level powerhouse. If the 3 of them go up together, he will only have the clone of the venerable, which is faintly difficult. What's more, his clones have been fighting continuously in the past few days, and their energy has dropped again. Now they are not sure when facing the attack of this group of strong men. But you have to fight even if you are not sure. Boom. The world shook, and Jia Yan took out the clone's trump card that had not been used for a long time. A small man-made black hole instantly appeared at the edge of subspace, cracking a small gap in space and erupting with a terrifying gravitational force. What? The second-level monster that charged first was stunned, and its body was blocked. With the help of the space stone, even if the clone does not have space talent, it can still use artificial black holes with some flexibility. Man-made black holes? Where did you learn this technology? The creature suddenly broke free from the constraints of the black hole and was about to attack Jia Yan, who was right in front of him, but he found that Jia Yan took advantage of the moment when he was delayed to retreat and enter the subspace. In addition, the strong men who came to attack did not hesitate at all. They emitted brainwave power to the surroundings and tried their best to disrupt the space. Although their method was extremely crude, The clone was not his real body, and there was a slight turbulence in the space. In the subspace, he was like a monster twisted to the limit, almost torn apart by the twisted space. Get out of here. The monster that just attacked Jia Yan also came to his senses and joined the team that affected the subspace. But at this moment, a suction force came to the three monsters, and the gravity exploded instantly, causing them all to stagger again. Not far away from the three monsters, Jia Yan's similarly staggering figure walked out of the subspace. The figure behind seemed to be twisted to the limit. If he had not appeared outside the space, he would have been seriously injured in the subspace. Jia Yan was slightly at a disadvantage in this round. It's really scary. Jia Yan looked at the three sub-level creatures with a somewhat solemn gaze. He could clearly see the movements of each one, but he couldn't display any combat skills. The clone's body limited his burst of combat power, and even caused some changes in his fighting habits. Just like his real body, he no longer dares to use the black hole casually, because every time the clone uses the black hole, it is a burden on the body. If the real body were here, I could kill them with just a breath. It's really. Jia Yan smiled bitterly. But the real body has not arrived. Even if the ejection starts now, it will not arrive immediately. The clone will have to last for a while. He looked slightly cold. Even if I can't come in my true form, I can still compare to the top geniuses in the genius battlefield. I can't crush you in terms of energy. Let me show you the fighting skills of a real genius. Don't forget, besides being a genius, Jia Yan's fighting skills are also an important part of his ability to kill enemies across levels. Combat skills inherited from the elders, plus various combat skills learned in the genius battlefield. There is also the combat ability learned from the Tianhe forces. None of this can be explained by level. Now that he cannot use a simple crushing fighting method, Jia Yan will let the opponent have a taste of his true terror. Boom. Use the power of brain waves. The black hole is here again. Don't be afraid, guard against him. If you can't use energy to disrupt the space, he also uses his space talent to operate this black hole. As long as the space is disrupted, he will have no effect. Huh. The black hole was swaying, and the suction force was frightening. The three creatures were just about to deal with the black hole, but they suddenly felt that Jia Yan had not entered the subspace, and suddenly rushed in front of the three of them while they were in a hurry. Jia Yan, how dare you rush in like this? It's a life-threatening situation. You will die if you underestimate us. The three creatures suddenly flashed with anger, and then all attacked in the direction of Jia Yan. The coordination of the three creatures is indeed good, and their strength is also strong. For ordinary creatures, let alone venerable ones, even sub-level creatures will die under such a blow. But Jia Yan's expression was slightly solemn at this time, and he did not dodge at all, but directly collided with the terrifying attacks erupted by the three monsters. The first monster's foot was about to attack Jia Yan's body, but at this moment, the monster felt his body tighten. Asshole! We actually forgot about the man-made black hole. The monster's attack deviated from its original trajectory, and then passed by the tiny body of Jia Yan's clone. A strange light flashed in Jia Yan's eyes. After dodging a blow from his foot, his body had arrived in front of the opponent's face. Then he raised his fist and hit the opponent's nose hard. The nose of this dinosaur creature was extremely fragile. Although this blow could not kill him in one fell swoop, it made him instantly dizzy and took a few steps back. The expressions of the two sub-level creatures that came from behind changed greatly. They were afraid that Jia Yan would chase the dinosaur monster and hurriedly rescued them. A monster's steps are like the legs of a giant, kicking out. The other one protected the dinosaur monster with his arm, turned around, and swept up his tail. Like a strong wind sweeping away fallen leaves like a house with dozens of floors, the tail struck hard at Jia Yan's tiny body. Well done. Jia Yan's clone is full of fighting spirit at this moment. In fact, he is familiar with the fighting method of the human body. Jia Yan also enjoys it. After all, he still has too few days as a human being. Now he can use this form to fight against powerful enemies. It is also a good experience. To Jia Yan's clone, who was only the size of an ordinary earthling, the attacks of the two creatures were like overwhelming, as if a mountain peak was coming towards him. But he was not afraid, and the moment before the opponent swept over him, his body stepped into the subspace. If you want to escape, there's no way. The two attacking creatures roared, then the brainwave power was used, and the space was directly disrupted by them. But before that, Jia Yan's brainwave power had already been swinging in the same way. Their brainwave power was huge, but the area to be bombarded was large. Jia Yan only needed to use the brainwave power to stabilize a small space where he was. I was not forced out. The expressions of the two monsters changed. At this moment, the dinosaur creature had come to its senses. Although it was injured, it was only slightly injured. The power of its brainwaves was also strong. Following the brainwave power of the two partners, it suddenly enveloped the place where Jia Yan's clone was. He can't escape. The three creatures were overjoyed. At such a close distance, their total brainwave power was many times that of Jia Yan, the clone. They could easily kill each other by suppressing the space. But at this time, at the edge of the space they suppressed, an artificial black hole jumped out of the space. With a buzzing sound, their brainwave power was completely disrupted and shattered. Jia Yan took advantage of this gap and approached the abdomen of a subpassage creature directly from the subspace. Puff! A punch spurted out power and hit it hard. Ouch! The monster let out a scream, and a punch punched a hole about 3 meters deep in his abdomen. Although it was only insignificant compared to its huge body, it still caused him unbearable pain. Almost under conditioned reflex, the remaining two sub-level experts quickly used their brainwave power to seal Jia Yan's clone from entering the subspace. However, this time, Jia Yan actually did not enter the subspace, but stepped back, retreating like lightning in the normal universe. Since their brainwave power was focused on disrupting subspace, Jia Yan, who was flying in normal space, was hardly affected at all. This is the difference between height and vision. As he retreated, the corners of Jia Yan's avatar's originally slightly cold mouth curled up, revealing a faint smile. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1069. After a few moves, 3 powerful secondary level creatures were actually seriously injured by a little venerable head-on attack. This scene made the 3 outside secondary level creatures feel chills in their hearts. This Orion arm Jia Yan is indeed someone not to be underestimated. Well, no matter how small he is, he can't kill us directly. With the combined strength of the 3 of us, it's not difficult to kill him. Now that they have reached the 3rd level, they still think they can deal with Jia Yan. They solemnly combine their brainwave powers, and the surroundings are always in a state of suppressive space. In this way, Jia Yan cannot easily enter the subspace to fight them. Quick, get close to him. As long as we get close to him, we will win. The dinosaur monster radiated brainwave power while flying forward quickly. This was the tactic they had prepared before. If they couldn't kill Jia Yan head-on for a moment, then they would drag him to death. As long as he got close to Jia Yan, with their sub-level energy advantage, they could drag Jia Yan to death. But if they had seen Jia Yan's true form in a previous battle, they would have understood that this tactic was not slippery for them, and it was actually Jia Yan's most slippery tactic. Huh? It's not good to imitate anyone but those half-star powerhouses from the Disciple Regiment. Jia Yan's eyes lit up. Then the three monsters did not dare to enter the subspace when they saw Jia Yan's clone, and quickly escaped in the normal space in front, but they could not match the speed of the strong man in the previous level. Haha, he doesn't dare to enter the subspace anymore. He's tight and trying his best to disrupt the space. The three creatures were overjoyed, and then worked harder to disrupt the subspace. They used too much force, and the surrounding subspace collapsed into extremely chaotic pieces. With the application of this power, Jia Yan, who was running for his life in front, did not dare to enter the subspace. Even the black hole not far away seemed to be out of his control and stopped in place. Hoo, Jia Yan, you can't escape. The dinosaur monster saw Jia Yan getting closer and closer, almost right in front of him, and his monster face showed a hint of human excitement. But he didn't feel that his physical strength was disappearing rapidly. The same is true for the three sub-level creatures. In their minds, as long as Jia Yan loses the advantage of subspace, he will have no chance of victory at all against the three of them, so they don't have to worry about losing some power now. So now the three monsters are using great force to disrupt the space. Sure enough, the second level, compared to the half-star level, the vision is worse. What's more, this time the level is not a genius. Jia Yanfei was in front, shaking his head lightly. He hadn't used his acting skills yet, making the other party think that he couldn't hold on. The three guys following him had used up most of their strength. That's it, let's end this battle. There are other places waiting for me to go. Of course, Jia Yan also expended a lot of strength, but don't forget that his clone has an almost inexhaustible energy source. That is his true form. Just after Jia Yanzi finished speaking these words, Tingtianga's real body in the distance suddenly exerted force. The linkage channel has been stable recently, and Jia Yan can also transfer energy to the clone regardless of time, but there was no need to transfer it a few days ago. At this critical moment, the energy of the real body is transmitted, and the clone here is shocked. Then a surge of pure energy overflowed into his body. Huh? This. Kankan followed the dinosaur monster behind Jia Yan, and his eyes widened almost instantly. Not good. He was almost furious and wanted to retreat, but it was already too late. How could Jia Yan, who had regained his strength, let his prey, which had lost so much energy, escape like this? Puff. In the moment of confusion, Jia Yan, who was full of energy, had already used the strength he had regained to turn around. Although his fist was not big, in the eyes of the dinosaur monster, it was like a small planet slamming into him. Boom. Above the stars, space is shattered. The dinosaur monster couldn't resist this blow at all, and its head exploded open. What? How can it be? The other two sub-level creatures that followed behind couldn't believe their eyes at this moment. When they were chasing Jia Yan before, they were extremely confident. They were just sages with less energy than them. They only relied on sub-dimensional talent. Even before this, they knew that Jia Yan had fought for several days and killed many of their outside colleagues. Now, even if he was really powerful, it would be good if he could use 70% of his strength. Therefore, their self-confidence was extremely high, but they did not expect that the battle that was originally going smoothly would actually happen when they almost thought they had won. Here comes a big flip. Why, you can't possibly still have such power. A sub-level creature quickly retreated, looking at the tiny creature as it retreated. It penetrated the dinosaur monster's head and shot toward him like lightning. Oh, why can't I have such power? Forget it if you don't understand, just go to hell and think about it. Jia Yan said lightly. He immediately caught up with him. Although the opponent wanted to escape, he used too much brainwave power when victory was in hand. Now he couldn't even use the brainwave power used to hinder Jia Yan. Boom. The same space vibration. Accompanied by the sound of space vibration, the creatures in that level followed in the footsteps of the dinosaur monsters. The secondary creature on the other side didn't know what to say at this moment. He could only close his mouth and run away like crazy. Originally, the three sub-level creatures were friends of the same team in the outside world. When they heard that there was a seemingly powerful venerable level person in the arms of Orion, they felt that others were joking. When they came in this time, they originally wanted to get a good bounty, and then go out to have a good time. Unexpectedly, the strongest Orion Arm Master lived up to his reputation. 2 of the 3 people died here, and even he is in danger now. Jia Yan, if you have anything to say, I can reveal to you the specific plan of this outside operation. No need, no matter what, our Orion Arm needs to face it. Jia Yan chased after this sub-level, not because he really didn't need information, but because this type of sub-level was more powerful than other sub-levels, and it would definitely be a hazard to keep it. Jia Yan, it's useless for you to kill me. You have no idea how terrifying the strong men who are about to enter this time are. In addition to the second pass level who is as powerful as me, there is even a semi-star level senior. The creatures in your Orion Arm don't understand the horror of half-stars at all. This is not the 2 so-called half-stars in your Orion Arm, but a real half-star, and you can't resist it. Half a star. Jia Yan was shocked when he heard this, and his pursuit speed seemed to slow down slightly. You actually know the half-star level? That's even better. Just know it. Now I will give you information and tell you where the senior will appear. As long as you let me go, a catastrophe can be avoided. Seeing Jia Yan's expression, the other party actually guessed that Jia Yan also understood the horror of half-star level, so he hurriedly said these words. You say. Jia Yan stopped flying and looked at the opponent's back. This senior will appear at the 8352 base area in the southwest in half an hour. His purpose is to complete the final placement of the destruction machine we set up. When the monster saw Jia Yan getting further and further away from him, the joy in his eyes gradually rose. What is the destruction machine? The destruction machine is a machine set up for your Orion Arm barrier. As long as it is installed properly, it will be able to expand an area within the Orion Arm barrier for our normal life. In the meantime, we can use it as a base and slowly capture your Orion Arm. It's actually like this. Jia Yan finally understood why the external biochemical empire forces tirelessly and seemingly without reason continued to attack Cao Wo's defense line. Originally, he thought that since the opponent could not stay in Orion's arms for a long time, he should not be afraid of consuming attacks all the time. This was not in the interests of any force. Now we know that they have always had a hidden hand when they broke into the Orion Arm, or they have been secretly investigating in the Orion Arm, and now they have actually made such a machine that can easily break into the barrier. Haha, Jia Yan, you Orion Arm natives should die. I will come back to avenge my 2 brothers right away. At that time, the creature was hundreds of kilometers away from Jia Yan. At this distance, he was no longer afraid of Jia Yan's pursuit and started yelling like crazy. Oh! It seems that I can't do anything without solving you. Jia Yan glanced at the other person, and then a gap suddenly opened in the subspace not far from the monster. The terrifying suction force came, and the second-level creature actually slowed down instantly. Jia Yan here, indifferent, stepped into the subspace with both feet. Your Excellency Jia Yan, I was just joking. Seriously, the information I told you didn't lie to you. Don't. A moment later, Jia Yan appeared in front of the creature at that level. The opponent ran away like crazy, but he had lost most of his power, and his single combat power could not compare with Jia Yan. He could not escape at all, so he began to beg for mercy. But how could Jia Yan believe him? Boom! With a shocking loud noise, this sub-level creature, like his 2 brothers, turned into dust in the universe. Wow, Your Excellency Jia Yan is incredible. He actually defeated the combined efforts of 3 external sub-level creatures by himself. It's just, I can't believe it. We know that against such sub-level creatures, our great empire, the Lion King and the Flame Lord, can't directly win against any of them. He actually killed 3 of them by himself. The fighting power displayed by Jia Yan in this battle almost made the Kaowo defense line soldiers around him boil with excitement. But Jia Yan was not so happy. After all, it was just 3 ordinary secondary level creatures, and he killed who knows how many. Half-star level. The clone frowned. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1070. The clone's combat power can barely defeat 3 or 2 ordinary sub-levels from the outside world. But if the opponent changes to a half-star level, even if it is an ordinary half-star level existence, it will be a disaster. Originally, his own true form had fought against half-stars, so of course he understood the difference in strength. But in the intelligence just now, it was actually said that half a star level could pass through the barrier and reach the Orion arm. No, I can't stop it, and this clone can't die yet. Jia Yan's eyes flashed. Next, he looked at the place where the other party's intelligence was revealed, which was hundreds of millions of kilometers away in the distant direction. If he had rushed over, he would have had time, but it was useless for him to rush there. Even if it is the weakest of the half-stars in the outside world, it is impossible for his current clone to defeat it. Give me the China Unicom Defense Line Command Star, important information. Jia Yan opened the communication channel and spoke in a deep voice. Not long after, only 10 minutes, the entire Kaowo defense line received an order that they could hardly believe. Retreat, retreat. Why, even though we have been defending for so long, Your Excellency Jia Yan has also killed so many of their strong men. Don't withdraw. We can hold on. If we withdraw now, those dead brothers will be nothing. The outside creatures can come in if we evacuate them. Our Orion arm will never have peace from now on. We cannot evacuate. Up and down the entire defense line, hundreds of millions of civilized creatures were shocked by this order, and then they disobeyed the order and roared like crazy. You must know that there is no self-defense line. Ever since preparations began decades ago, countless civilizations and creatures have put their efforts into it. Not to mention anything else, each of the hundreds of millions of creatures here is a lucky winner of their own civilization, and each of them has the huge support of their civilization. Now that it has been withdrawn, it means the collapse of Kaowo's defense line. Not to mention that all the hard work and sacrifices expended in the past have been in vain. No one dares to imagine what will happen to the Orion arm in the future. Withdraw. This is an order issued by His Excellency Jia Yan and the senior defense officials. Brothers, our command star is unwilling to withdraw, but there is no other way. The battle situation is not in our favor. If we don't withdraw, the entire defense line will perish. Let's withdraw. The entire defense line was filled with a feeling of sadness that was greater than death. Why would Sir Jia Yan issue such an order? He is so brave, but he would take the initiative to give up the defense line. Could it be that he... Shut up, sir, you can't arrange this matter. I support you, sir. I also feel that the enemy's attacks recently are different from the past. Let's go. If you don't go, it will be too late. Kaowo's defense line is originally composed of countless interstellar materials. Although its maneuverability cannot be compared with that of battleships, each base has its own propulsion system. Now it begins to retreat slowly, each one slowly accelerating. In just a few in an hour, the speed will reach an extremely fast level. Withdraw. Above the Interstellar, every high-level person with no defense line was looking at the countless bases and the scene of the evacuation of the battleships. Some of these bases were overtaken by powerful creatures chasing the opponent, and the stars continued to explode, but there was no rescue scene from any base. It's time to withdraw. Originally we wanted to suggest a few adults to retreat, but now Lord Jia Yan has said it first, it's better to withdraw. Several high-level officials of Cao Wo's defense line stared blankly at the entire retreat, or rather the route, of the defense line. Each of them seemed to have lost the ability to speak. In fact, they had wanted to make this suggestion for a long time, because they had used the detection system to feel that there was some weird energy faintly appearing in the entire Cao Wo defense line that had been attacked. This energy made the enemy appear again, no longer afraid of the pressure in Orion's arm. Under this situation, it would be a matter of time for those powerful enemies to kill the soldiers of Cao Wo's defense line in one go. I just didn't expect Jia Yan to propose retreat first. Above the star, a tiny ray of light is also retreating. However, this brilliance is not a route like Great Escape, but a guard behind a certain group of warships. Haha, this fleet is actually full of rookies. Let me destroy them. An outsider lord chased a few lonely warships to the starry sky. When he saw the stumbling fleet in front of him, which could not pick up the speed of its retreat, it seemed that it had no fighting power, and he suddenly burst into bloodthirsty laughter. Then he was not afraid of the fleet, which numbered several thousand, and charged madly towards this place. As long as he can hold off for a while, the outside invaders from behind will come and swallow up this huge fleet in one go. By then, his achievements will be great. But this creature made good calculations, but it never thought that behind the fleet, a murderous god that he didn't expect was waiting outside the fleet. Puff! As soon as the venerable got closer, a brainwave force appeared behind his one-man battleship. He couldn't react at all, his whole body suddenly trembled, and he died immediately. And in the darkness, the faint brilliance flickered and entered the darkness again. This small piece of brilliance is actually an aircraft that is only about 10 meters in size. In the space cabin, Jia Yan didn't seem to care at all about the previous killings. He just looked at the Cao Wo defense base and fleet that were defeated in large areas and then chased by the enemy. Is this order I gave correct? Jia Yan was a little confused. He was not even sure yet whether the other party really had a half-star existence that would suddenly enter the barrier. But he can be sure that the opponent's barrier machine definitely exists. The current barrier area has long been filled with the feeling of the outside starry sky. As a person who lives in the outside world, he is sure of this. So there is nothing wrong with me giving the order to retreat. At least this way I can avoid the enemy from entering in large numbers and our defense line will be completely wiped out. Jia Yan shook his head, and then no longer paid attention to other bases or fleets, but followed the fleet in front. If there were any powerful creatures or ships from the outside that wanted to get close, he would bombard them with brainwave power. The fleet in front was naturally the crude Earth fleet that was escaping in a hurry, and there was also Jia Qi, the little niece that Jia Yan cared about. What's going on? Aren't we in the rear? Why are we retreating now? There are even enemies near us. There was almost chaos in the Earth fleet. Cao Wo's defense line is over. Retreat across the board, quickly, quickly, quickly. Our fleets are of varying quality and insufficiently trained. If we don't retreat to the rear, we will move to the front. All the enemies will attack us. Exclamations and bewilderment were heard almost everywhere in the fleet. Inside the flagship, Jia Qi was different. He looked at several senior officers in the battleship and asked what they were talking about. How is my uncle's safety? How can we retreat with him here? He won't be in any danger. Jia Kai was extremely nervous. Don't worry, this retreat order was issued by Master Jia Yan. We don't know where you are now. In short, you are very strong and everything will be fine. Our first priority is to retreat. The flagship captain responded helplessly to Jia Qi. Jia Qi was also familiar with the command of some warships. Now after hearing the other party's words, she understood that the other party could not know Jia Yan's situation, so she gave up questioning in a reasonable manner. Then she came to the bridge and looked at the scene of the great retreat outside. The entire starry sky, covering several light years, hundreds of millions of creatures, millions of warships, and tens of thousands of planetary bases are all evacuating. What kind of scenery is it like? The grand retreat that stretched for several light years, this kind of scene was so grand that any person on Earth would be shocked when they saw it. Even the people of the great empire themselves would be extremely shocked when they saw it. Within a few light years, there is light everywhere, the light of battleships, the light of battles, the light of weapon systems, and so on. I don't know when the number of outside creatures increased. Huge gaps kept opening in the distant barrier land. Not only the powerful creatures, but also battleships, weapon systems, and even basic supplies began to be transported into the barrier. Enter. This huge retreat can be said to be extremely timely. Otherwise, the hundreds of millions of creatures that would have stayed in the place where the enemy could enter in large numbers would have been able to escape in the end. I am afraid there would never have been as many as there are now. Miss Jiakai, I'm sorry to put you through such danger again. The fifth prince of the great empire came not far from Jiachi and smiled wryly. This is an order from my uncle, you don't have to apologize to me. Jiachi shook her head. She could clearly tell who was right and who was wrong. After these few days of war, she seemed to have grown up in an instant. Well, to put it bluntly, my great empire is still useless and cannot be a help to His Excellency Jia Yan. You have been fighting alone these past few days and have performed well enough, but the result is still this. The fifth prince came to the bridge with a wry smile and looked at the starry sky outside the bridge with Jiachi. In the starry sky, a base similar to the size of the moon was overtaken by 3 sub-level experts and 30 or 40 sages. After resisting for a period of time, the entire base finally sacrificed its life and exploded with a bang. Of the 3 sub-level creatures, 2 flew out in the explosion, but were also seriously injured, while the other 1 stayed in the explosion place forever. The Venerable suffered heavy casualties, and most of them were unable to escape from the exploding base. Kao's defense line has done a good job. On behalf of the Earth civilization, I would like to thank your line of defense for your contribution to the Orion Arm. Jiakai saw that scene and said sincerely. The fifth prince closed his eyes. Scenes like that in that base were happening everywhere in the starry sky, and he couldn't bear to see them. What's the use of doing it well? If you don't block it, you won't block it. Without the protection of the barrier, our Orion Arm has already been taken care of by the opponent. They only need to take the machine step by step to swallow the stars. The civilization in our Orion Arm will always be there. One day it will be completely destroyed. The fifth prince smiled bitterly. Well. In the space capsule following the Earth fleet, Jia Yan also let out a long sigh. However, compared to the pessimism of the fifth prince, Jia Yan did not give up hope. Real body. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1071. The entire Kawa defense line was in emergency, and almost all the civilization empires surrounding the defense line began to retreat urgently. But at this moment, Jia Yan disappeared. He was retreating with the fleet guarding the Earth. Fortunately, the external forces were not really able to adapt to the environment within the Orion Arm. The pursuit lasted for several days, and then most of the powerful external forces and fleets retreated to the newly occupied territory under the strong pressure within the Orion Arm. There is a magical machine there that isolates the entire starry sky, and a feeling similar to the outer star field pervades, allowing the outside creatures located there to avoid the terrifying pressure in Orion's arms. Kao's defense base and fleet were on the run, and they could finally breathe a sigh of relief. In total, about half of the bases and fleets were destroyed in this battle, and the combat power suffered heavy losses. 3/4 of the Venerable died. The command star of Kao's defense line used an extremely high-end jet engine and escaped at the front with almost no damage. But none of the senior officials in the command star were happy. Looking at the series of reports, every senior executive felt heavy pressure on his heart. Master Jia Yan is also missing. Do we still have a future? A humanoid from the great empire looked at the screen in front of him almost blankly. The casualty figures on it made the corners of his eyes twitch. No, Mr. Jia Yan is fine. I just received a message from him. He is currently protecting the Earth fleet. The second prince of the great empire said to him with some relief. It's the Earth fleet again. Does Mr. Jia Yan understand which one is more important between the Kaowo defense line and a small fleet? He actually went to protect a small fleet in this situation. That person, the humanoid executives almost roared. Shut up. Is there anything wrong with Mr. Jia Yan protecting the Earth fleet? We have no defense line, and we have nothing to do with him. Your Majesty does not need your words to do things. The second prince almost frowned to stop the senior executive. Words. That's right. Mr. Jia Yan really doesn't need to care too much about our defense line. Even if the defense line is destroyed and external forces spread to the Earth, it will be at least a few months or even a few years later. He can indeed do it now, no need to work hard. The senior executive smiled bitterly and then stopped talking. The second prince looked at each other, then fell silent. In fact, he was not so happy with Jia Yan's actions, but as he said, it was completely necessary to ignore Jia Yan's defense line. Moreover, even if he appeared in the retreat scene, what could he have done? Woolen cloth? At the worst, they could protect a few more fleets and a few more bases, and the battle-loss ratio might look better, but it would be of no use, and it would be impossible to save the overall situation of a complete collapse of the defense line. That's all. The second prince smiled bitterly. The entire defense line retreated 3 light years, and was immediately reorganized under the appointment of His Excellency the second prince to build a new line of defense. It's just that everyone's heart is in despair now. Everyone knows that without the natural protection of the barrier, it is only a matter of time before the Orion arm falls. Jia Yan, who had been criticized by others, appeared in the Earth fleet because there were no pursuers behind him. Uncle, I knew it was you who helped us along the way. When Jia Qi saw Jia Yan, she still smiled, but that smile was not as innocent as before. Now you know how terrible war is, Jia Yan said with a calm face. Well, I will practice hard after I go back. Uncle, I won't behave badly in the future. Please don't be angry with Kikai. Jia Qi knew that Jia Yan was most afraid of her acting like a spoiled child, and Jia Yan couldn't stand it when he acted like a spoiled child. Ahem, you are already a grown-up child and you are still acting like a spoiled child with your uncle. It's really. Jia Yan finally lost his composure and said, after we go back, we won't have to leave the Earth until we reach the heavenly level. Do you understand? Understood, Jia Kai responded loudly. She also knew that her uncle was no longer angry with her. But uncle, now that Kawu's defense line is broken, can I still practice well on Earth? I'm afraid. Jia Qi thought for a while, and then said hesitantly to Jia Yan. Little Gitu, you have grown up and you still worry about this kind of thing. Jia Yan smiled slightly and then touched Jia Qi's little head. Under the caress of Jia Yan's big hand, Jia Qi seemed to be back to the time when she was a child, when her uncle took her to play together, which was safe and fun. Don't be afraid, my uncle will be there for everything, and the forces in the biochemical star field can't make trouble. Although there were no heroic words in Jia Yan's words, there was a magnanimity that was unbelievable. When he heard these words, not only Jia Qi's eyes lit up, but also the hearts of the 5 princes of the empire who dared not approach him were shocked. Your Excellency Jia Yan, it seems that there is another way. If we say who is most likely to turn the tide in Orion's arms, then any creature will now say that it is only Jia Yan. Although in this situation, they also know that there are creatures from the outside that appear to be more powerful than Lord Jia Yan. No one believes that Jia Yan can do anything, but the only one who may have a way is Jia Yan. A dead horse is a living doctor. If you don't believe in Jia Yan, who else can you believe? Your Excellency Jia Yan, I didn't know you. The fifth prince was about to speak, but was interrupted by Jia Yan's voice turning his head. Your Excellency, the fifth prince, you have been away from the great empire for a long time, and you must have missed home, right? Go back now, give me a message, keep the defense line, and then leave everything to me. Yes, the fifth prince knew that Jia Yan had issued an order to expel guests, so he couldn't help but nodded in agreement. The Earth's fleet is said to number in the thousands, but in fact, there are only about 100 ships belonging to the people on Earth. Okay, my fellow neighbors of Earth civilization, everyone is lucky this time. You all can go back. It's just that the defense line needs your help now. If possible, you can send a few fleets to support the front line after you go back. Jia Yan would like to thank everyone. Jia Yan dismissed the members of the non-Earth fleet, and then the huge fleet in the entire starry sky suddenly thinned out, becoming a small fleet of only about 100. Okay, let's go back to Earth now. Jia Yan waved his hand and gave the order on the flagship. The entire Earthlings on the Earth fleet had solemn expressions. They witnessed the battle at Kaowo's defense line with their own eyes. At the same time, after understanding the facts of the war, they all felt worried about the future of Earth civilization. Jia Yan didn't have so many ideas. After arranging everything, he came to his cabin on the flagship. Well, now that we have come to this point, we have to come if we don't have the real body. It's just a pity that there are no training resources in the genius battlefield. After a spiritual transformation, Jia Yan returned to his true body. Ziba, is the ejection device ready? I'm already at Tingtian Pavilion. A ray of dark light quickly streaked down from the sky. Tingtian Pavilion is no longer the same as before. The entire dark territory, which is located on the edge of the dark territory and should not be considered a good place in the first place, is almost bustling with people. There are battleships, cargo ships, and many single strong creatures coming and going everywhere. Most of them are forces or strong people who have taken refuge, and some are here to discuss business. After all, with the name of Tingtian Pavilion, even commercial cargo ships from the outside world are almost in the dark realm as long as they are protected by Tingtian Pavilion. No one dares to make any decisions everywhere. Jia Yan criticized the armor, but he quietly changed the appearance of the armor so that it looked like an enlarged version of a giant mosquito. No one knew him, so he was able to reach Tingtian Star quickly. Stop, you dare to barge into my room. You are looking for, sir. Sir, you are back. A high-level senior official of Tingtian Pavilion floated up into the sky, and rushed towards Jia Yan, who was listening to Tianxing, with some frightened and angry curses. However, he suddenly felt the identity information of MOK coming from Jia Yan's body, and he quickly nodded and bowed. Stand up. Although he didn't know why Jia Yan changed his image, it was almost impossible to get his identity information wrong, so the Siguan senior executive immediately understood that the person in front of him was Moke. Well, I'm back. Take me to Zibala. The giant metal mosquito transformed by Jia Yan said calmly to this secondary level being. Okay. The senior executive originally wanted to report on their recent achievements, especially Tingtianga's growing business network, but seeing that Jia Yan didn't seem to be interested, he quickly stopped talking. Tingtian Pavilion has changed a lot, the entire small planet is almost full of business, and some stores are even as big as a city. Jia Yan looked at this advanced planet with almost no place to stay, and was really moved. He left it alone, and his subordinates were so eager to manage the desolate planet into such a state. No wonder Jia Yan recently felt that his resources were almost exhausted. No, they have made great contributions. But now is not the time to say so much. The subordinate originally wanted to report that the genius battlefield official had sent a stellar powerhouse to Tingtianxing to find Jia Yan about something. Seeing Jia Yan's furious appearance, he immediately swallowed back all the words he wanted to say. Arriving at the boundary of a planet that stretches for dozens of kilometers, this place that occupies a huge area of the entire planet is where Zibala and her research team are located. This factory has also begun to grow in scale, and it looks almost the same as the scientific research base of Taya that Jia Yan has seen. "Sir, you are finally here." Before Jia Yan could enter the research institute, 11 Bala had already greeted him. Then, under her leadership, they walked toward the factory area while talking. The second-level subordinate who brought Jia Yan over bowed his head and stepped back outside the factory. After all, his status was not enough to participate in Jia Yan's core secrets. "The ejection device has been prepared, but sir, are you sure you really want to eject? Knowing the location you said, it is not easy to return to the genius battlefield." Zibala chatted with Jia Yan, and then showed a look of pity. Especially when she saw that Jia Yan had now restored his battle armor to his giant mosquito appearance, she felt even more reluctant to let go. Master Jia Yan is not only her most powerful partner, but also her idol once, no, I should say still is. "I will return." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1072. Jia Yan was not lying when he said he would come back. Fastest update. The genius battlefield is the place set by his predecessors to reach the star level. Now Jia Yan also believes that this is the best place to pass the level. Not only is it rich in resources, but the energy in the starry sky is also very suitable for passing the level. So no matter how far away, he will come back. If he can come once, he can come a second time. Sir, I believe you will come back. In fact, I want to tell you that when I was sorting out my grandfather's manuscripts recently, I discovered an unfinished work by him. This work turned out to improve stellar combat capabilities. Please leave. I will continue to study it in the coming days, and when you come back, I will personally hand it over to you. I hope that by then, you will already be a half-star level existence or above. Zibala said to Jia Yan with a smile. Half-star level, Jia Yan shook his head slightly. He would not say that he did not need to go through half-star level at all and would directly return to impact the star. Of course it's useless to say this now. Entering a huge building in the factory, Jia Yan saw a huge machine on a complex machine platform. Lord Jia Yan, this is the improved catapult that I developed after studying the information you gave me. Compared with the original version, it can launch objects with greater mass, and I will also carry the most advanced flying ship of my Liqiao force. Here it is, the size just meets your specifications. Zibala was beside Jia Yan and introduced the machine to Jia Yan. Jia Yan couldn't understand the data, but when he saw Zibala and other staff looking tired, he understood how hard they worked. Thank you. I don't have much time now. Anyway, thank you very much, Ziba. Thank you. Your Excellency has helped my father before, and I also received funds. You don't owe me anything. Hee hee. Jia Yan smiled. It would be nice to remember this kind of thing. He would not argue with 11 Bala. I want to launch now. Are you ready? Jia Yan asked seriously. Well, but before that, sir, I said I would give you a gift, now please give me a minute. Zibala smiled, and then, out of curiosity, Jia Yan took him to another huge machine. You can make your true body come out. This is the clone machine you mentioned before. I have already prepared it according to your genes and quantum order. You only need to inject energy to leave a body in this genius battlefield. Doppelganger. Huh? Can you leave a clone in the genius battlefield? Jia Yan was shocked. It turned out that when he told Zibala about the clone, he just mentioned it casually. Unexpectedly, Zibala actually made such preparations on his own. Don't be too happy, sir. I'm busy with the catapult on weekdays and don't have much time to study this clone theory, so it can't be compared with the clone you said. It's just a simple structure. You can't even pass this. The clone does too many things, but you will know after you use it. Zibala said helplessly. Jia Yan's real body entered the machine. Not long after, he felt something in the machine frantically extracting the energy of his real body. After less than half an hour, he walked out of the machine. Sir, it will take several days for this clone to succeed. If you are in a hurry, eject first. Seeing that Jia Yan didn't seem to have time to wait, Zibala suggested. Jia Yan agreed to eject without any hesitation. Since I can keep my clone, I will keep this Tingtian Pavilion, but you must pay attention to safety. Tingtian Pavilion without me will be too ostentatious. Jia Yan arranged some affairs. As for the Edisha, Jia Yan looked at the sky. As early as when he flew to Tingtian Pavilion and knew that he would be able to eject soon, Edisha couldn't help but started flying towards the Orion arm before sending Jia Yan away. Go. The Edisha has been better repaired recently, and if the route is relatively fixed, he can still fly in deep subspace, and the speed is countless times faster than in the Genius battlefield before. But now that it has started flying, the time it will take to reach the Earth will not be too fast, at least it will take several years. Ziba, one last question for you. Are you sure this machine can drag my two black holes together? Jia Yan asked solemnly. Sir, our simulator has calculated it. This kind of ejection is an ultra-fast ejection theory above deep subspace. It can cause gravitational effects when ejected. Your two black holes are also materials with high gravity. In this case, the two are just enough to drag, and the ejection energy is not wasted. In short, it is very good, don't worry. Zibala originally wanted to use a bunch of professional terms, but she gave up when she saw Jia Yan's look. Instead, she explained to Jia Yan in plain language. Jia Yan really didn't understand what the gravity pulling effect and the subspace drag effect were. In short, he understands that it is enough to be able to lead. Okay then, eject. Jia Yan stabilized the two huge black holes that had been following him. This was his most powerful fighting method now. Climbing into the ultra-fast aircraft on the ejection device, Jia Yan originally thought that this time he would really fly away physically, but he did not expect that Zibala actually carried an aircraft. Of course, this aircraft is not big. After Jia Yan entered, his entire armored body felt like it was crowded, making him extremely uncomfortable. But there is no way, the conditions are like this. Another moment passed. Sir, I will miss you, come back soon. Under Zibala's almost crying cry, the roof of the tall building opened, and then a loud bang resounded throughout the Tingtian Pavilion. The surrounding creatures all looked to the sky in astonishment, but when they looked, they saw only a string of flames in the sky and nothing at all. It's that group of R/U0026D teams that listen to Tianj's so-called research and development team again. They can make mountains collapse at every turn. It's really noisy. The creatures were almost astonished. What they didn't know was that the loud noise before was simply the departure of the terrifying existence Mok, who was related to the life and death of Tingtian Pavilion. And just a few minutes after the loud noise passed, an extremely huge monster that almost covered the sky and sun came to Tingtian Star. What? Then Jia Yan left again? And this time you don't know where he went. Is it easy for me to win over a junior? Ugh. That huge creature actually roared in front of a group of weak people from Tingtian Pavilion. Of course, Jia Yan, who had all this ejected, no longer knew. There was no trace of his presence in the starry sky. He is now in a subspace, and because of the theory of catapults, This is not an ordinary subspace, but an ultimate level space that the catapult uses a certain principle to enter. The surrounding area is an inexplicable land that is almost twisted to the extreme. It's scary. This is the real depth of subspace, a place that even my spatial abilities can't reach. Jia Yan looked at the surrounding scenery. Even though he had experienced it once, he was still shocked. After the catapult sprayed him and the super-fast aircraft into the deep space, it was pushed violently for a certain distance, and then fell off and fell into the twisted deep space. The energy required for this propulsion is unimaginable. When Jia Yan made the catapult before, he wasted a lot of resources and put most of the materials and energy harvested in the dark realm into this thruster. Fortunately, the propulsion met the requirements and Jia Yan sat smoothly in the aircraft. The space behind is like an angry cat. As long as the aircraft slows down a little bit, it will be completely distorted and then swallowed up. This is also the reason why space creatures such as Jia Yan cannot reach this deep level space for almost their entire lives. They cannot reach the speed of a catapult, otherwise they will be completely swallowed by the twisted space behind them. Fortunately, the catapult has already calculated the escape speed, and the twisted space behind it cannot swallow Jia Yan at all. How fast is this speed? It's surrounded by a dark and deep space. It's impossible to guess. Jia Yan had almost no idea how fast he was at this moment, but he could roughly calculate it. The ejection site is about 9,000 light-years away from the Orion Arm, and the approximate arrival time is 3 months. In other words, it flies over about 75 light-years in one day. This kind of speed is almost unimaginable to Jia Yan. Even Ziba was a little stunned when he heard him talk about this kind of speed and way of traveling through space. Find bookstore. If you want Genius Battlefield to do it, you can only use star teleportation technology, but no matter how fast it is still a little worse than this speed. It can be seen that even though the technology of Taya Kingdom is inferior to that of Genius Battlefield as a whole, it still has its own advantages in terms of creativity and high-end. Orion Arm. Sitting in the aircraft, Jia Yan looked at a certain direction in the faint space, and then his compound eyes flickered. Not just cold, but also a touch of excitement. Previously, his avatar was on Earth, where he saw the development of the Earth and his family, but that was not his real body after all. Even if Jia Yan could feel everything through his spirit, it was like there was a layer of cotton between him, and he seemed to be unable to see through it. But when the true body returns, everything is different. Just wanting to recognize each other is extremely difficult, but just hoping to see them in person is enough. The aircraft flew towards the Orion Arm in the deep space at a speed that no one else could imagine. And here is the Orion Arm. The war is still going on. Damn it, the external forces are progressing faster than we expected. I surrender, don't kill me, Damn outside creatures, die. The remnant soldiers of Kaowo's defense line who originally retreated were attacked again by outside forces not long after they retreated to the second line of defense. This time the opponent came with more ferocity. There are not only strong men, but also terrifying battleships and terrifying attack weapons. With this advantage, the defense line is simply unable to resist. No, we can't hold on, retreat, retreat. Due to the opponent's unimaginable technical superiority and the advantage of being strong, the entire remaining defense line collapsed again in just half a day. At this point, it turns out that the Great Kao's defense line, and the Orion Arm's protective umbrella that countless creatures thought was like an iron wall, completely collapsed. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1073. A blue planet, with white clouds in the sky, the same color as the earth, water, and sky. It is a beautiful sight. But on this planet continent, all living things are crazy. They ignored the beautiful scenery around them. The green grass and trees in the city were trampled until almost all of them died. The originally beautiful star was completely transformed by the destruction of intelligent creatures. I want to buy a ticket, please. I want to buy a ticket. Who is willing to sell me a ticket, even one ticket for my child, please? A beautiful creature that looked like a winged elf, holding a young creature in its arms, kept kneeling down to the surrounding creatures for help. But the creatures around her just turned their heads one by one and looked at her indifferently, without any help. Mom, I'm so scared. The young creature in her arms seemed to be a miniature version of her, with a cute face that looked like something out of a cartoon, capable of melting any intelligent creature that saw her. But it's useless, no one on this planet can do this. Escape quickly. The devil from the outside has already attacked our planet. It will be too late if we don't escape. I still have the last ship ticket for our company here. What I want is 5,000 Imperial Yuan. I don't accept your country's currency, because your country will soon exist. In the direction of the crazily surging creatures, there is a very high platform with several creatures sitting on it. When one of the creatures took out a simple-looking bill, the person below almost went crazy. I want it, I want 5,000. For God's sake, please give it to me. The winged humanoid holding the child below almost turned red looking at the bill, but she couldn't get it because she didn't have the Great Empire Yuan in her hand. Mom, don't cry, let's go home. The little girl-like creature in her arms was very obedient. He reached out and wiped the corners of her eyes to wipe away the tears. Well, let's go home. We won't go anywhere. Let's go home. The winged creature smiled and shook its head, and then no longer looked at the huge spaceship behind it. She understood that the mother and daughter could not get on this spaceship. Just as the mother and daughter were walking back, a creature with a similar body shape slowly walked up to the mother and daughter. What a good little girl. This is a figure that looks like a winged creature. If you look carefully, he is the Earthling who has recently become a noble race in Orion's arms. In the wary eyes of the winged female creature, the other party stretched out his hand and gave the little girl creature a piece of candy. Thank you, Uncle. The cute little creature looked like a 3 or 4-year-old Earth girl. Of course, it felt even cuter and had a pair of little wings on its back. Feeling your generosity. The female creature smiled and thanked her, then walked past the Earthling man with a wary expression and walked in the opposite direction of the crowd. Madam, I have the yuan here. If you don't mind, I can buy you 2 tickets. The man's words made Ms. Wings almost stunned. Then she turned around and saw that the man was indeed holding several pieces of imperial paper money in his hand. This gentleman, are you telling the truth? She wanted to grab the money, because it represented the lives of their mother and daughter. Of course, here you go, the man sighed, then put the money into the little girl's hand. Thank you, Uncle. The little girl obviously knew something and happily thanked the man. The winged woman was about to say thank you a few times, but she found that there was a man from Earth in front of her. Mom, where is Uncle? The little girl was also shocked and looked around. Uncle is on the boat, let's get on the boat quickly. Great, I want to take the big boat. Outside the space, a small aircraft was orbiting the beautiful planet outside the star. The man who was talking to the woman and her daughter before had a complicated expression at the moment. He just stood beside the aircraft and looked at the beautiful stars below. Such a hinterland planet is about to become a front line. The force of the biochemical star territory is really fast in attacking. The man's face is that of Jia Yan's clone. At this moment, he looked at the star below that was about to face war, shook his head and sighed. It has been 2 months since Cao Wo's defense line was completely lost. Jia Yan hurriedly dismissed the Earth fleet, then sent Jia Qi not far from the solar system, and then returned to the outside of the battlefield. It took 2 months to go back and forth. When he got close to the front line again, he discovered that there was another front line somewhere. Based on the Yuanxiuvo defense line, the entire external invading force was like a goddess scattering flowers, attacking from all directions. The previous defense line was completely crossed, countless star bases were destroyed, and warships were scurrying around in the starry sky. The communication system was disrupted by the opponent's technological advantages, and there was almost no ultra-long-distance communication method. Jia Yan could see that the entire starry sky was full of original exiled ships, some of which could barely form an army, and some of which were single battleships. Some of them still abide by the warrior code, and some have changed their roles and are robbing families and homes everywhere. None of this could stop the attacks of external forces. They had slowly devoured the starry sky and reached the territory of several starry sky empires around Kaowo's defense line. What is in front of you is a certain starry sky empire that used to be closest to Kaowo's defense line. Unfortunately, this great empire that occupied 3 star systems is now only the last habitable star left, and it is about to be completely destroyed. When a war breaks out, the people will suffer the most. Jia Yan looked at the stars below, then his pupils trembled for the first time, and he looked at the starry sky not far away. It turned out that 10 external star warships were slowly approaching the star. Humph, does a fleet of 10 warships dare to go deep into the hinterland and deceive me, the Orion, who has no help? Jia Yan snorted slightly, then hid the space capsule, took a step forward, and flew towards the place where the 10 battleships were. Not long after, the 10 most powerful external fleets, which only existed at the starry sky level, exploded one by one. How is that possible? There are such powerful creatures in this area. Run away. The small fleet of 10 battleships was not stupid. When their teammates exploded one after another, they knew they were encountering an invincible existence. The remaining ships quickly turned around like crazy. But when they turned around, they exploded one after another, and the enemy's shadow was not even revealed. By the time the U-turn was completed, only one of the 10 battleships was left. Who is it? Bastard, you dare to attack our fleet. Aren't you afraid of retaliation from our army next? The commander in the last battleship is a strong man of about the upper level of the starry sky. Although this kind of strength is nothing in the outside world, within the Orion arm, his starry sky level is enough to compete with an Orion arm venerable. After fighting, it can be regarded as a tyrannical existence. But now he actually has no way to deal with the shadowless enemy, and even now he doesn't know who is attacking this fleet. Revenge? Of course I'm not afraid. Just after he shouted the words in the command room, he suddenly heard a strange voice behind him. The entire battleship soldiers in the command cabin looked at him in shock. I saw a tiny figure appearing where the sound came from. Although this figure is small, his image and appearance are familiar to almost every outside intruder. That is the suspected strongest person in Orion's arms, the Earthling Jia Yan. Jia Yan. When the starry midterm captain saw this creature that was hundreds of times smaller than himself, not only did he not breathe a sigh of relief, but he felt like he was about to faint. It would be fine if they met other Orion arm strongmen, but they would be in trouble if they met Jia Yan, the strongest one. Okay, if you don't want to die, don't act rashly, Jia Yan said lightly, and then walked to the main brain control place in the battleship command room. He looked around, and sure enough, the system used by the other party was somewhat similar to the one he used in Genius Battlefield and Northern Battlefield. The most important thing was that the languages were all lingua franca, and he could read them. Here, the password. Jia Yan looked at the starry mid-level captain. Jia Yan, you loser dog, don't be too arrogant. If the adults of our power are here, you will definitely die. Boom. As soon as the mid-star captain finished speaking his harsh words, an explosion sound came from his head. This behemoth, dozens of meters tall, died just like that. Okay, you should be the deputy captain, come here. Jia Yan seemed to have crushed a small ant to death, and then looked at the early stage creatures in the starry sky on the other side. Not long after, another burst of bright light lit up in the starry sky. Even if he got the information, Jia Yan did not hold back and let the last battleship turn into dust in the universe. Originally, when the two armies were fighting, there was no need to talk about principles. It seems that the battle situation is more severe than I expected. After reading the information inside the last battleship, Jia Yan almost looked solemn. The collapse of the entire Kaowo defense line was like announcing the collapse of the entire Orion arm. No empire could survive for too long when the army of external forces came. The speed at which they travel is almost equal to the speed of flight. If they didn't need the kind of machine that stabilizes the pressure in Orion's arms, they might be able to swallow even more territory in a few months. Returning to the space capsule, Jia Yan looked at the beautiful planet below. At this moment, it seemed that because of the battle in the starry sky, the entire planet was a spectacular scene of thousands of ships taking off. Of course, there are almost no warships here, and most of them are tattered ordinary civilian aircraft. It is not known whether they can fly to the edge of the star system. I don't know which of the tens of thousands of aircraft the previous alien mother and daughter were in. Even if they can escape from the star, the fate that awaits them in the future will not be too good if they think about it. Hey, aliens are also humans. Why have I been so sentimental lately? But if this attack is ignored, the Earth may suffer a similar fate before too long. It seems that the clone will have to work harder. New volume, Mosquito Ancestor. I can't think of a better volume name, haha. I hope everyone can subscribe to the official version, thank you.